At the end of the year, I like to take a look at all the videos that I posted for the previous year and then pull out some of my favorite ones. Whether that's some simple tricks that help you see more birds in your backyard, or how to attract more birds to your bird feeder. These videos are all designed to help you become a better birder. Enjoy. Ever had a bird fly overhead and thought that could literally be anything? There's no color, no pattern, and just a dark shape across the sky. We've all been there, and here's the thing. That moment isn't a failure, it's an opportunity. Because when you can't rely on color, you rely on shape. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to use a bird's silhouette and figure out what kind of bird it is, even if you can't figure out what species it is. We're going to cover how to spot the body parts that matter, the most common bird silhouettes, and how to read them, the best ways to practice this skill, and the one trick I use to make fast, confident IDs even when the bird is just a shadow. You won't always be able to identify a bird down to a species with silhouette, but it is a fun challenge and is definitely a great way to up your birding game. So let's get started. Here's the truth. Color is fragile. It's great when you have good lighting and a still bird at close range. When the bird is backlit in the shade or flying overhead, it can be kind of useless sometimes. And that's when the shape of a bird becomes your best friend. This is why experienced birders don't panic when they can't see plumage, because they're going to be reading the bird's posture, proportions, and behavior all from silhouette. Silhouette is mainly about pattern recognition, and once you learn it, it sticks. So here's what silhouette can or can't tell you. Silhouette usually won't get you down to a species. There are occasional instances where it will, but most of the time you're not going to be able to ID a specific warbler or sparrow just by shape, but it will help you narrow down to a family or group, rule out some obvious mismatches, or make some quick decisions when time is short. Silhouette will often give you the first layer of a bird's ID, and it's incredibly useful if that's all you've got. So when you're looking at a silhouette, not all body parts are equally helpful. You'll want to focus on the loud features that will reveal something first, and here's the big four. Head and bill shape. A small rounded head with no visible bill probably is a songbird, versus if it's a big bird with a big head and a big bill, chances are that that's going to be a raptor, or if it's a pretty tall bird with a very slender bill, that's probably going to be a shorebird. Next, you want to focus on body size and posture. Is it upright like a thrush, or is it chunky like a duck, or maybe even like streamlined like a swift? And then third, you want to focus on tail shape. This is huge. This can be huge. Tail shape is definitely overlooked, I think, with bird ID, but it can be huge, especially with sparrows. You want to look at whether or not there's a fork in the tail, or how deep that fork is. If it's squared off, the grasshopper sparrow is a pretty easy bird to identify by silhouette because it's got this chunky head, a chunky bill, and then a very short squared off tail. You want to look at the length of the wings, the width of the wings, just the overall shape, like whether or not the wings appear to be rounded, and then also the primary feathers are those feathers right at the edge of the wing. It's like for the turkey vulture, it's going to be spread out like fingers, but for some hawks, they're going to keep them more closed. And then a pro tip here would be to also pay attention to birds' behavior. A lot of hawks can be separated just by how quickly they fly, whether or not like they do 3 flaps and then glide. The gray hawk has a pretty distinctive flight pattern, so you can identify a lot of birds just by how they fly. Woodpeckers typically have pretty strong undulating flight where they go up and down like that, and so paying attention to flight style and just overall a bird's behavior can be very helpful too. So now let's walk through some silhouettes that you're actually going to see in the field. We'll cover 8 main groups of birds and just what their silhouettes would look like. So the first one we have here is hawks. They typically have long tails, broad, long wings, and then typically a pretty big head. Most hawks are seen soaring, so their flight can vary from slow glides to fast flaps. It really just depends on the species. Smaller hawks are typically going to flap more often compared to larger hawks. That's really true for all birds. Bigger birds are going to fly slower compared to smaller birds. Next one is warblers, typically small chunky birds with a small bill and then usually a long tail. Here we've got another warbler. The last one was a Wilson's warbler. This one is a Blackburnian warbler. So still a pretty chunky bird. Different posture here, so they can change their posture a little bit. But most of the time, you've got a small chunky bird with a long tail and then a short bill. Next one is a duck. Pretty recognizable silhouette. Compared to geese, they're going to be a little bit smaller, a little chunkier, and then generally they have smaller necks too. But all ducks have a long bill and then overall just a pretty distinctive shape. Next one is herons. This is a great blue heron. Long neck, long bill, and usually long legs. Some birds like the green heron or black-crowned night heron are going to be shorter, but they're still going to have, proportionally speaking, pretty long bills and long legs. Next is swallows. We have here on the left a barn swallow, and then I believe this one here is a tree swallow. But all swallows have large, broad wings that typically come off to a point. Barn swallow's got this deep fork in its tail, and then the tree swallow has more of a squared off tail that can appear rounded. They use their tails to balance while flying, so it really just depends on what view you get. But generally, a pretty long tail compared to how big the bird is. They're not necessarily large birds, but proportionally speaking, they're going to have long wings and a long tail. And then all swallows are pretty small. I think the barn swallow is one of the largest, and they are not that big of a bird. Next one is woodpeckers. All woodpeckers have pretty large bills, big head, and then usually this upright posture. They're usually always on trees. They also generally have pretty long tails because they use their tails to balance on trees, and so that can be a good way to tell them apart. And also, if a bird's banging its head into a tree, that's probably going to be a woodpecker. I don't know of any other family of birds that does that. Next one is a thrush. All thrushes have this upright posture, a medium-sized bill, and then a medium-sized tail. Pretty round birds, and then, like I said, they're always going to have this upright posture. Next family of birds is flycatchers. Flycatchers usually have an upright posture, pretty rounded head. Some of them have more of a crest than others. Always a long tail, and then their bill size can vary. The Acadian flycatcher right here has the longest bill out of all of the impid flycatchers, but usually they always have a pretty long bill. You don't need perfect lighting or exotic birds to practice this, you just need to build some visual memory, and so here's how to do it. Tip number 1 is to watch birds at sunset or sunrise. The lighting at this time naturally backlights the birds, so you're going to see silhouettes that way. And then also a good way to practice would be to sketch some bird shapes. Draw from memory, and you don't have to worry about being perfect, you're just trying to get some reps in and just try to practice memorizing what birds look like. It's a great skill to become a better birder. And also pay attention to birds while they're at your feeder. You can learn a lot by bird shapes, especially when they're close to you at a feeder. So that's also a great way to practice. So here is my favorite silhouette trick, and that is wing to body ratio plus tail shape. When a bird zips by you and you've got half a second to make the call, these are the two things that I look for. And here's why. Because they're fast, clear, and hard to miss. Raptors have long wings and a small body and then a long tail, and swallows have a tiny body and then huge pointy wings, and then some like the barn swallow have a forked tail, while others have a more squared off tail. Herons have really long wings and then really long legs, and so those two clues will instantly rule out a lot of possibilities. And so remember, you're not trying to get a perfect ID from a silhouette, you're just trying to get going in a confident direction, and also it's just a fun way to practice birding and get better. So start noticing bird silhouettes on your next walk and watch how birds fly, study their posture, check wing shapes. You'll start seeing things that you never noticed before. There's a bird singing right now, but you can't see it. It's somewhere up in the trees and probably pretty small. It's definitely hidden, and it's repeating the same song over and over again. If you're like most birders, you just move on. But the best birders, they don't move on. They ID it right there just by sound. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to do that too, step by step, using real-world examples, proven techniques, and a free app that makes this 10 times easier. I've also got a free cheat sheet that makes learning bird songs so much easier. More on that later. If you're only birding with your eyes, you're missing half the birds around you. Literally half. Birding by ear is super important because most of the time, you'll hear a bird before you ever see it. And sometimes, you never see it. Hey, I'm Caleb from Better Birders, the channel that helps beginner birders get better one video at a time. Today I'm going to walk you through how to identify birds by their songs and calls, starting with step 1. And that is to use the Merlin Bird ID app. This is one of the easiest ways to start identifying bird calls today. So all you gotta do is download the Merlin Bird ID app by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. It's free, and then you gotta use the Sound ID feature. All you gotta do is tap the microphone icon and then let the app record bird songs. It's very accurate, and it's gonna let you know exactly what bird is singing as they do it. This is a great way to not only identify birds by their song, but also learn how to identify birds by their song, as it lets you know what birds are singing, so you can stick that into your memory for next time. Step 2 is to start listening with intention. Apps are awesome, but your ears are your greatest birding tool, and the way to sharpen them is with intentional listening. Here's how to practice. Pick one bird at a time, and start with a bird that's common in your area, like a northern cardinal, American robin, or a house wren. Play its song multiple times a day using Merlin or allaboutbirds.org. Then go outside and try to hear it in the wild. Repeat this over a few days and your brain will start locking in the sound. Also, try to describe the sound to yourself. This is huge. Don't just listen to it. Give it some words. Is it like a clear whistle, a trill, or like a buzzy chip? Does it rise, fall, or repeat? You can also put it into words. For example, the American robin sounds like cheerily, cheer up, cheerio. Or the black-capped chickadee is chickadee. The tufted titmouse is Peter, Peter, Peter. And speaking of putting words to bird songs, I've put together a free PDF with mnemonics to 50 common backyard birds. It's completely free and you can download it with the link in the video description below. I found that these types of memory tricks are super effective and really help when you're first starting out. Step 3 is to learn the different types of bird songs. Birds don't make all one universal sound. They can use different types of calls for different reasons. Here's the big ones. First one is songs, and these are usually more musical and complex. Males typically sing these during the spring and summer to attract mates or defend their territory. The next would be calls. These are short, simple sounds that are used year-round. This can include alarm calls, chip calls, or miscellaneous calls that few people can even recognize. And while it's possible to identify birds by these calls, for beginners, I would recommend focusing on songs for now. And a big tip for learning bird songs is to start in the breeding season, which is spring through early summer. That's when birds are the most vocal and the easiest to identify by sound. If you're getting value out of this video, then I would really appreciate it if you would tap that like button, as it helps this video spread to more bird song lovers just like you. Step 4 is to compare and repeat. Like any language, bird sounds are about repetition and exposure. Here's how to build your ear. You'll want to compare bird songs such as how the northern cardinal sounds to a house finch because they're completely different, but if you're just starting out, you might not be able to notice all the different details, so you can play the northern cardinal in the Merlin Bird ID app, then switch to the house finch and just see if you notice any differences between the two. I'll give you a hint, there's quite a few, so maybe even try writing them down could be a great way to learn. You'll also want to compare pitch, volume, speed, and repetition. And here's one of the best tips I've ever come across when learning to identify birds by their song, and that is to watch the birds sing. If you watch the bird sing, it sticks in your head. And to give you a quick story on this, a couple of years ago I was birding behind my house, and I saw this Carolina wren pop out of the bushes, and then it started singing. And ever since then, as soon as a Carolina wren sings, I know exactly what is calling. And so just watching a bird sing out in the wild and just getting in the practice is the best way to master birding by ear. If you want to attract more birds to your backyard, stay tuned because in this video I'm going to walk you through 5 proven tips that will turn your yard into a bird magnet. Whether you live in the suburbs, the city, or out in the country, these tips will work. Let's jump in. Tip number 1 is to feed what your local birds actually eat. Most people just toss up a generic seed mix and hope for the best. But here's the problem. That seed mix is often packed with millet, and birds just don't really eat millet. Here's a quick guide to some of the best food types and what birds they attract. Black oil sunflower seed. It's a classic and it's loved by cardinals, chickadees, finches. Most of your backyard birds will eat this. Also, there's Niger seed, or also referred to as thistle seed. Goldfinches love this stuff, and while goldfinches do eat sunflower seeds, they definitely prefer Niger seed. Suet is great for woodpeckers, nuthatches, and sometimes even warblers will eat some in the winter. If you want to attract bluebirds and mealworms, it's definitely the way to go. You can get them dried or live. Unfortunately, starlings and blackbirds also like to eat them, so it's a bit of a gamble. Fruit or jelly. If you want Orioles, this is definitely your ticket. Orioles love grape jelly, and they will eat oranges as well. To start, I would recommend black oil sunflower seed. It's probably the most common, and a lot of birds like it. Tip number 2 is to use the right feeder for the right bird. The type of feeder that you use matters. Here's a quick rundown of the different feeders. Tube feeders are perfect for finches, chickadees, and titmice. Typically, with tube feeders, you would put in some thistle seed. Platform feeders can be great for bigger birds such as cardinals, jays, doves, and blackbirds. Suet cages are designed to hold suet so that woodpeckers and nuthatches can eat it. Hopper feeders are a good all-around choice. They got a roof, keeps the seed dry, and if you're getting black oil sunflower seeds, that is the kind of feeder that I would recommend. You could also get a window bird feeder. It just suction cups to your window, and then you put in some sunflower seeds, and that can be a really neat way to get up close to birds. I'll link one in the video description below for you to check out. If this video is helping you feel more confident about attracting birds already, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Tip number 3 is to add water. If you do one thing today to attract more birds, it should be add water. A bird bath can attract species that don't even usually come to feeders. I've seen warblers, grosbeaks, birds that wouldn't usually stop at feeders all stop in for a drink or to take a bath. Ideally, the best bird bath is not made from glass so the birds don't slip, and is not deeper than 2 inches. You can also add some movement to your bird feeder, like a dripper or a solar fountain. Birds can hear water, and so that can be a great way to attract some more birds too. Tip number 4 is to plant for the birds. If you want birds to stay year-round, go and give them a reason. This means planting native plants that offer food and shelter. Birds eat seeds, berries, nectar, and all of those come with the right plants. Here's some easy beginner options. Coneflowers and sunflowers. They produce a lot of seeds and birds love to eat them. You could also get some service berries or dogwoods. These are amazing for fruit-eating birds such as cedar waxwing. Grasses and shrubs can be great for cover, especially if you don't have any of those already. You also might want to consider adding like a pile of logs or something for some insects. Tip number 5 is to be patient and consistent. This part is pretty hard, but it's important. Birds won't always show up right away. Sometimes it takes days or even sometimes weeks for them to discover a new food source or water spot. The summer is usually the slowest time anyway because of all the insects that birds can eat. Keep your feeders stocked, water fresh, and stay observant. Also, try starting a yard list. Track who's coming. You'll learn so much just by watching. Have you ever gone out birding full of excitement and then come back thinking, where did all the birds go? Don't worry, I've been there too. And in fact, most beginner birders go through the same frustration. But the good news is, there is ways to change that. Today, I'm going to give you 7 proven tips to spot more birds more often. These are the exact things I use every time I go out into the field. And make sure you stick around till tip number 7, because you could literally double the amount of birds that you find. Tip number 1 is to pick the right habitat for maximum sightings. One of the great things about birding is the fact that birds are practically everywhere. However, for this video, I'm showing you how to find as many birds as possible, and so to do that, you need to make sure that you are birding in the correct habitat. The kind of habitat that you want is one that has water, and for this reason, wetlands can be one of the most productive spots for finding a lot of birds. One of the best ways to find great hotspots that have a lot of birds is to go to eBird and then check out the Hotspots tab. And here, hotspots are color-coded to let you know how many birds have been seen there. If it's a blue or a gray, you're not going to find quite as many birds there as maybe like a dark red. Tip number 2 is to time your outings like a pro. Birds don't necessarily operate on our schedule, and so if you're heading out at noon, chances are that you are not birding the peak birding hours. While this can vary from season to season, birds are most active 2 hours after sunrise and 2 hours before sunset. That's when they feed, sing, and defend territory, which is all great for spotting them. And once at a National Wildlife Refuge in Washington, I saw 28 species in the middle of the day, while if I would have gone in the morning, I probably could have got closer to 40 species. Wetlands are one habitat that can still be very productive outside of morning hours. If you're looking for songbirds, morning hours is definitely the time to go, as that's when they're singing and you can pick up a lot more birds. But if you're looking for birds of prey, afternoon can be just as productive, if not more productive, because it is warmer then, and that's when birds are out using the air thermals to move around. Tip number 3 is to slow down and then slow down again. If you just blaze through trails, you're not birding, you're just hiking. When you slow your pace down to a crawl, you start to notice some smaller things that you may have missed at normal speed. Try this. Walk 20 feet, stop, scan, listen for birds, and then repeat. You'll start spotting birds that were there all along. You just need to slow down in order to find them. Tip number 4 is to use your ears. 80% of my birds are found by sound first. This is especially true in dense habitats. Birds are often vocal before they're visible. You can use Merlin Bird ID's Sound ID feature. It's awesome for identifying bird songs. Once you hear a sound, you can either identify it right there, or you can try to find it. I'll link my guide to birdsong in the video description below. Tip number 5 is the chickadee trick. Whenever I hear a chickadee or a titmouse, I pay attention. These birds often lead mixed flocks, which is traveling groups of different species of small birds that move together through the trees or whatever habitat they're in. Typically, they're made up of birds such as warblers, kinglets, or nuthatches. They're all tagging together to try and avoid predators. And so if you see a small flock of these birds, pay attention, because there can often be some more birds and species mixed in. Also, another cool trick that you can get from small birds like chickadees is if they're making a lot of noise, an owl might be nearby, so pay attention. If this video has been helpful so far, do me a favor and hit that like button so more birders can find this video. And if you're new here, consider subscribing to Better Birders, because this channel is all about leveling up your skills to help you become a better birder. Okay, let's keep going. Tip number 6 is to learn to work the edges. Birds love the transition zones between habitats. This is where like a forest meets a meadow, or shrubs line up against a stream. Or it could even be as simple as a fence line. These areas will often give birds access to multiple food sources and shelter options. You can also see several types of birds because you're in 2 different habitats. For example, you can be standing in one area and see grassland birds on your left, and then wetland birds such as ducks on your right. Tip number 7 is to stay put and let the birds come to you. Here's one that most birders overlook. Sit down and see what shows up. When you stay still, birds become more used to you and then will become more active around you. Birds that were hiding will start coming out again and foraging for food. The key here is to pick a spot that birds will be attracted to. find some water like a creek or good habitat like fruit trees or a bird feeder, some of your best bird experiences and photos will come from staying in one spot. Also, if you're birding during the middle of the day, pick one spot that has some water and see what shows up. If you want more birding tips just like this, make sure you sign up for the Better Birders newsletter. You'll get notified of new videos, bird fun facts, and more sent to your inbox every week. You can sign up with the link in the video description below. Welcome back to another video. Today I am attempting the first of year birding challenge. Never done this challenge before. The previous 3 years I've only seen 5 species of birds on the first of the year, really just because I've never paid much attention to it and never specifically gone out to try to look for birds on New Year's Day. I've got a pretty big route planned for us today. I'm currently in central Texas by Canyon Lake. It's in between San Antonio and Austin. Should be a lot of great birds. I don't really have a record that I'm trying to beat, but I think 60 species would probably be a pretty good target to hit. First place that I'm at right now is Landa Park. Should be a lot of good woodland birds here, as well as some waterfowl like Egyptian goose and lesser scaup, so it'd be cool to get those, and we'll see what else I can get today. So right off the bat, I got a bunch of great birds, including a red-shouldered hawk. There's actually 2 of them. And then black-crested titmouse, which was pretty neat. There's a lot of birds calling, so I'm kind of just trying to go slow and see how many I can get. And hopefully we can get some more. So right above me in this tree here is a calling eastern phoebe, and then I also had a flyover flock of cedar waxwings. There's about 30 to 40 of them, and then also an American robin that flew over. So I think the total species for me right now is at about 10 or so, including a barred owl that I saw on the drive here. So right now I'm birding this stream area behind me here, and I heard a wren here earlier, so we'll see if we can find that. Just looking to see if I can hear any birds calling and just paying attention to flyovers. And there's a lake behind me that we'll go check out here in a little bit to see if there's some cormorants or some herons to get there. So the area by the lake was super productive. Got a lot of birds. As far as land birds go, I got a yellow-bellied sapsucker, which is super neat. Wasn't really expecting that one. And then a yellow-rumped warbler, 2 Carolina wrens. And then as far as waterfowl goes, I got some double-crested cormorants, an Egyptian goose, which is pretty neat. They're an introduced species that is quite common in this area. Also got pie-billed grebe, 2 buffleheads, and some great egrets. Behind me here is some great-tailed grackles as well. So I'm going a little farther along the pond here, and I got a white ibis, which is a rare bird that's been here for, I think, a month or so. And then also got a belted kingfisher. I had heard one earlier, but that's the first one that I've seen. And then there's a yellow-crowned night heron perched on some rails up here. Got some good pictures of Egyptian geese, and also saw a neotropic cormorant, which is pretty neat. So here by the lake still, and I've gotten quite a few more birds. Got white ibis, which is rare, and black-crowned night heron, which isn't very common. So it's cool to get those 2 birds. People have been seeing them on eBird for quite a while now. Some more pie-billed grebes, and I think I'm going to head into the woods a little bit more, see if I can get some more woods birds. Still some cormorants flying around, and a lot of great-tailed grackles. So I just picked up 2 new birds. I heard a house finch and got about 5 flyover mourning doves. So I've been walking around here for a while and haven't really gotten much that's new. I did see a lesser scaup, so that's kind of neat to get that. But I think I'll probably see a lot more of those later in the day. I did get a Buick's wren though, which is super neat. I wasn't sure how common that bird would be here, but neat to get that. Looks kind of like a Carolina wren, just a little more gray. So it's neat to get that, and can hear a couple of black-crested titmice. I saw one a while earlier, but still need to hear them. They're a neat bird. I think I'm around 29 species or so right now, which is a great start to the day. We'll head somewhere else in this park and see if I can find anything else. So I've been here for about an hour and got 34 species. The 2 newest ones were orange-crowned warbler and golden-fronted woodpecker. Only heard the woodpecker, but I did get some nice looks at the warbler. Pretty neat little bird. Next place is just a pond that should have some ruddy ducks. It's got other waterfowl than just ruddy ducks, but ruddy ducks are my main target there because I don't think I'll get them anywhere else today. There's a chance we could get them on the lake, but they're not very common on canyon lakes, so while there will be other ducks like gadwalls and stuff, which will be new for the day, definitely be seeing more of those later today. So I'm here at this pond, just pulled off from the side of the road, and my main target here was ruddy ducks, and there was 3 of them. Also got some American coots and a ringneck duck, which was a bit of a surprise. So that's 3 new birds, plus there was some pigeons up on those silos up there. And so that's 4 new birds, which I think puts our total at about 36 or 37 for the day. So right now I am here at Canyon Lake. It's about a 30-minute drive from Landa Park. A lot of waterfowl here, mostly coots and northern shelflers, but hopefully I can pick out some new species for the day. Northern shelflers are new for the day. Then maybe we can get some sparrows here and see what else we can find. So I've been sorting through ducks and got some green-winged teals, which is pretty good, and a couple canvasback, which canvasback is actually one of my favorite ducks. I always like seeing them. Greater yellowlegs, and I've heard some sparrows but haven't been able to identify any, so hopefully I can get some close looks at them. I'm going to pick through the ducks a little bit more and see if I can find a grebe or a greater scaup, which wouldn't be really common, but always worth a look. And we'll also see if I can find some gulls. So right behind me, I just heard a canyon wren calling, which is a pretty common bird around here if you're in the right habitat, so super neat to get that. I had one other place today that I knew I had a pretty good chance of getting it there, but always great to get it right now and get it checked off the list. So I'm going to pack it up here. I think we're probably around 45 species of birds for the day. I haven't quite added it all up yet, but added some new waterfowl here. The canyon wren was great. Got a greater yellow legs and ring-billed gull, so all those are new for the year. We'll go ahead someplace else and see what else we can get. So I am here at Boat Ramp 7 on Canyon Lake, and there is a lot of waterfowl here as far as new ones go. I got redhead, mallard, and northern pintail. So those are some good ones to get. Redhead is pretty common here, but I've only seen a couple today, so that's kind of unusual, I think. Also got Say's Phoebe, which is a bird that's been hanging out at this boat ramp for a while now, so good to get that. I was hoping to maybe see an osprey here, but so far I haven't been able to see them. To the next spot and see what else we can get today. I think we're pretty close to around 50, maybe just a little bit over 50 species for the day so far. So unfortunately, my next stop was closed due to maintenance. That means we probably won't get osprey, and there was a brown booby that's been hanging out there. So that's kind of unfortunate to not be able to go there, but I'm at the Guadalupe River Trail here. That's the Guadalupe River right behind me, and should be some nice river birds here. Hoping to get spotted sandpiper. I've seen an eastern phoebe and some yellow rump warblers so far, so let's see what else we can find.
Pretty stuff, yeah. We are the pretty stuff, but it's got more of the.
So it's pretty quiet right now. Not a whole lot of activity, mostly just Carolina wrens. Hopefully I can find a spotted sandpiper or something, because that would be new. Other than that, I don't know that I'm really going to get a whole lot of new species here, just because everything is really quiet. So I just got a northern flicker, which is a new one for the day. Pretty neat woodpecker, and I believe that means that the only woodpecker left that I haven't seen here is the downy woodpecker, so hopefully we can come across one of those. So I just got several new birds for the year, all within a really short time span. I got a spotted townie, walked a little bit further, and then I heard and then saw a blue-gray gnatcatcher, which I was not expecting. I didn't even know that they spent the winter here. I thought they were farther south, so that's cool to get. And then I also got a ruby-crowned kinglet, which is super common. Just hadn't had a chance to see one yet, so that's awesome. So there's some northern cardinals and a few more ruby-crowned kinglets around here. I'm just going to head back and take a break for lunch, and then we'll hit the last stop of the day, which is the Old Hancock Horse Trail. Should get some good birds there, as well as some additional sparrow species that I haven't had the chance to get. Right now we're looking at about 57 or so species for the day, which is a lot more than I expected to get. So overall it's been a great day, and hopefully we can get some more birds by the end of it. So as I'm walking along the river here, I just saw 4 spotted sandpipers, which is another new one. Puts us at 61 species for the day. Spotted sandpipers are pretty common along this part of the Guadalupe River,
so I was pretty surprised I hadn't seen any yet. So it's great to get those checked off the list. So I'm here at the old Hancock Horse Trail, and my main targets here are sparrows. There's quite a few that I haven't gotten for the day yet that I can find here. Right off the bat, I got some Vesper sparrows and a couple white-crowned sparrows, which means that there are still some more common sparrows to be found, like the chipping sparrow and Lincoln sparrow. So hopefully we can find those. I'm also going to check out a spot where a sage thrasher has been seen recently. So hopefully we can find that. And then in that same spot, there's also been some common ground doves and Harris's sparrows reported. So most of the sparrows here in the scrubby area are Vesper and white-crowned sparrows, but I was able to pull out one lark sparrow and a song sparrow. So those are some new ones. I think we're probably around 65 species for the day or so. Also had a flyover flock of cedar waxwings and found this huge flock of mourning doves. So I'm at the spot that the sage thrasher was reported. Haven't seen it, and I don't think I will see it here, but I did get a common ground dove, and here they aren't actually super common. So great to get that one. There's probably not very many in this county, and this is the best place to see them. So great to get that bird, and then also got some more sparrows. The total amount of new species is 7, I think, right now. And so that might put us over 70. I haven't quite added it all up yet, but I think it's pretty close. So that will do it for the first of year birding challenge. Broke my previous record of 5 species because I've never really paid attention to it. Got a lot of neat birds, and there's still a lot of common birds that I can see over the next month or so. So super excited to do that. Shout out to Badgerland Birding for inspiring me to do this challenge. I saw him do it in 2023 and couldn't wait to do it this year. So had a lot of fun doing it. So thank you guys for challenging me to do that. As far as some notable misses go, I did not get osprey and both species of goldfinch. I did hear at least one species of goldfinch, but I wasn't able to see it or tell what species it was. And I did see 2 meadowlark species that I did not know. It's either eastern or western, but just got a glimpse of them and didn't hear them sing, so couldn't tell what it was. So if you count that, I guess I did kind of get 71 species, just couldn't quite tell which ones they are. Other than that, it was a great day of birding. Probably could have gotten a few more species if I didn't take a big break at lunch. But overall, I think it was a great day and saw a lot of birds.
Thinking about upgrading your birding game without breaking the bank? In this video, I'm going to be reviewing the Celestron Trail Seeker ED 8x42 binoculars and let you know if they're the best binoculars for beginner birders. Let's get started. So to go over some specs really quickly, as far as weight goes, these are very light. You could have them hanging on your neck for a while and they're really not going to hurt that bad. They're pretty small, easily portable, and 8x42 I think is the perfect size for birding because it gets you enough magnification to where it's not hard to find birds because you're zoomed in too far, but then the field of view is still big enough for you to be able to easily and quickly find birds. So that's what I'd recommend. If you're doing a lot of shore birding with your binoculars, maybe go to 10x42 just to get a little bit more zoom. But for most situations, like birding in your backyard or a forest, 8x42 is going to be the ones that you want. These binoculars also have a very close focusing distance, which is pretty essential for backyard birding. If you want to get closer looks at birds in your feeders, you can focus at things that are 8 feet away, I think is the minimum distance on these things, but super good focusing, very quickly and easy to focus. The focus knob is right here, really easy to use. They've got these eye cups right here if you like that for eye relief. And overall, I think they fit your hands really nicely, and I like them a lot. As far as image clarity and sharpness goes, these binoculars are great. One of the first things I noticed when I started using these is just how bright they are. The lenses let in so much light, and compared to cheaper binoculars, it makes a huge difference. You can go birding at dawn or dusk and not have to worry about not having enough light to see birds, because even at dusk when it's starting to get pretty dark, if you use these binoculars, it looks even brighter than it is without them. And so that is one thing I really like about these binoculars, is it's just super bright and the lenses let in so much light. Another really nice thing about these binoculars is there is not a lot of chromatic aberration. That's where you get kind of like that pink line around the edges of birds, especially when it's bright out, and these binoculars do a great job at minimizing that. It's not a huge deal with binoculars. Typically once you start getting into spotting scopes and you're Looking at birds over very long distances, that's when you could start to see some more chromatic aberration, but these binoculars do a great job of handling that. These binoculars are coated in rubber, which makes them a little bit more durable. If you were to drop them on the ground, I would not recommend testing it, but they do seem pretty durable. I believe they are waterproof as well, so if you happen to drop them in water, they should be fine. I've never done that, so I won't be able to say if they're waterproof, but it is a nice thing to know that they are waterproof just in case that happens. And as far as beginner friendliness goes, I think they're pretty easy to use. You can adjust them based on where your eyes are at. The focus knob is really easy to use and pretty self-explanatory. It's got another focus thing right here if it's just not quite matching up properly. And then because they're 8x42s, you're not going to be zoomed in extremely far, and so that's going to make it a little bit easier to find birds compared to some binoculars, which is really helpful when you're first starting out. So there are some cheaper options to the Celestron Trail Seeker ED 8x42s. The Vortex Diamondbacks are about $100 cheaper, but I've never used them, so I won't be able to tell exactly how better they are, but from what I've read, the Celestron Trail Seekers are going to be a little bit clearer, and the focus knob is going to be easier to use, and overall just a better binocular, so you're essentially getting what you pay for. And so would I recommend these to beginner birders? And I absolutely would. These are my favorite binoculars that I've ever used by far, and make it super fun to go out birding and a lot easier to find birds. If you're just using a camera right now to find birds and using that as your binoculars, I would really recommend investing in these, as they'll last a really long time and will make birding a lot more fun. As far as price goes, I think they currently go for about $350. I'll drop a link in the video description below for you to check them out, because prices do change quite a bit. And then if you want to check out more birding gear like a spotting scope or a tripod or even the camera lens that I use, go and check out this playlist right here. If you've been buying those big bags of cheap bird seed, the ones that say wild bird mix on the front, you're probably getting scammed. Let me explain. You think you're doing something good. You're putting out food for the birds, trying to help wildlife, or maybe even attract a few more species to your yard. But here's the problem. Most of those seed mixes are packed with filler seed, cheap grains that look like they belong in bird food, but are really just there to bulk up the bag and save the company money. And guess what? Most of your backyard birds want nothing to do with it. So you end up with a feeder full of seed that nobody's eating, a mess on the ground, and zero birds showing up. If you care about your backyard birds and want to get more value out of your feeder, stick around, because I'll show you what to look for, which seeds are worth your money, and how to outsmart the companies selling bird junk food. Let's get into it. Walk into any big box store and look at the cheapest wild bird seed bags. You'll probably see two ingredients taking up the bulk of the bag: millet and sorghum. Here's the problem. White millet is only liked by a small group of birds, like some sparrows and doves. Red millet and sorghum, however, most songbirds won't touch them. These grains are super cheap, so companies load up their mixes with them to make the bag look full, but it's mostly useless filler. You're basically paying for seed that birds will just toss out of the feeder, which creates an even bigger problem: waste, mess, and no birds. Most birds will pick through these mixes and throw the millet and sorghum on the ground, because, who would want to eat that? This leads to a pile of uneaten seeds, mold and pests, and worst of all, no birds at your feeder. You think you're doing something good, but you're actually making your yard less attractive to birds. Now, before we get on to how to pick the right seed for your local birds, I've got something exciting that I wanted to share. I just launched the Better Birders community. If you're interested in bird watching, this is the place you want to be. We've got courses, ID cheat sheets, birding itineraries, and tons more. Want to double the number of birds that you find? Watch my How to Find Birds Like a Pro course. You'll learn tricks like which parts of a habitat hold the most birds, how to detect birds like a pro, and a bunch more. Right now, finding members get in for just $5 a month. That price is going to at least double or triple as we add more content and more people join, but if you join right now, you lock that in for life. Hit the link in the video description below. I'm super excited about this, and I think you're really going to love it. So here's what you should look for in birdseed. Skip the junk mixes and just go for these high value seeds. Black oil sunflower seeds. It attracts the most species, it's the best choice. Most backyard birds eat it. Niger, or more commonly known as thistle seed, is perfect for finches. Goldfinches love it because it's a little bit smaller, and so it's easier for them to eat. Peanuts can be great for woodpeckers, nuthatches, jays. Safflower is ignored by squirrels, but a lot of birds like cardinals and chickadees love it. So I'm here at Lowe's, and let's go through the bird seed that they have here and just take a look at what you don't want and what you do. So right here, you don't want that. It's got a bunch of red millet in it and very little sunflower seeds. Right here, that looks like mostly sunflower seeds, a few other things. honestly not a bad mix. There's just not a lot of millet in that. That's what you want to look for. These look like shelled sunflower seeds. A lot of birds like that. And you can even get some smaller birds that don't necessarily like sunflower seeds eating those. That one doesn't have any millet in it. It looks like a lot of cracked corn and sunflower seeds. So that'd be a good option. This finch feeder blend, don't get that because it has a lot of white millet in it and not a lot of seeds that finches actually like. What I would really recommend you get is these black oil sunflower seeds right here. Just straight sunflower seeds, and a lot of birds like them. So when you're buying seed, read the ingredient list. Millet and sorghum near the top, put it back. The best way to know that you're getting good seed, just get 100% black oil sunflower seeds. That is the bird seed that I would recommend because almost all backyard birds love them. Also, weight can matter some too. Some brands advertise 20-pound bags of seed, but in reality, you're only getting a couple pounds of actual quality seed that birds are going to like. Local stores or co-ops can often carry higher quality mixes that are made for your region's birds. Here's a bonus tip for attracting more birds to your feeder. Try offering seed on several different types of feeders. Use a typical hopper feeder plus maybe a sock feeder for thistle seed or a platform feeder, and just put some seeds on that so that larger birds like doves can eat it. So for the question of the day, what was the coolest bird that you saw at your feeder recently? I'd love to hear. Put your answer down in the comments section below. Welcome back to another video. Today I am here with Ezekiel Dobson, who is the youngest person to break the 700 species barrier and also the new lower 48 states big year record holder. Welcome on, Ezekiel.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
So the first question that I have for you is, what first sparked your interest in birding?
Um, well, I guess my spark bird, you would say so, is probably ruffed grouse. I saw it in the northern panhandle of Idaho, which is where I had lived at the time. Um, but I mean, I was honestly just looking for a hobby to pick up. I was 12 years old at the time, and I was looking for like a birthday gift. And so I picked up a field guide to the birds of Idaho, and I just memorized like every bird in that book basically. And they had like a little checklist in the back, and I just started, knocking one and one off, one by one off of them. And yeah, it was fun and quite addicting for sure. And then once I found out about eBird and so on, that really hit it for me. So yeah, it was fun.
Cool. How long have you been birding?
So started when I was 12, so I guess that'd be eight years ago by now.
Cool. So to get into some big year questions, when you started the year, did you have like a specific goal in mind?
Well, I definitely considered it more of a casual big year when I first started for numerous reasons. Main was definitely financial. I didn't have a lot of money, so I knew I couldn't, just drop and chase everything I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I guess the main goal was to break 700. Once I knew I had already I guess once I knew 700 would be kind of a easier achievement for me, um, compared to the breaking the record and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But that was the main goal, was to break it at such a young age that if someone wanted to break my record of 700 at age 19, they'd have to be 18.
yeah.
So
And I think, was it Christian Hagenlocker who was the youngest before you?
I believe so. I think he was 20 and he had 680, I think.
What bird was the hardest for you to get during the year?
Ooh, one that was kind of tough for me that I wasn't expecting was hook-billed kite in
Mm,
the valley. Um, they can be seen pretty regularly when doing hawk watches and so on, just because they live
yeah,
so close to the border. But I did like hawk watches for multiple days straight in Benson, and then went over to Santa Ana for almost a week, and finally got one after like doing a week straight of hawk watches. But I didn't expect it to be that hard,
yeah.
especially when they were seeing it at this other spot, but it was just private property, and they were seeing it almost daily there. So I figured I had a pretty good chance at it, but I don't know why. It just took me
Yeah.
forever to get it.
Were there any birds that you missed that you had really hoped to see throughout the year?
Yes. The only common breeder I missed was Falcon.
Mm,
Um, So I guess they breed up in Alaska, but not in the lower 48. But they can be seen in a few spots in the winter grounds. I just didn't have enough time to look for one. They're sensitive species on eBird, so it's hard to track where they are and find specific locations. But yeah, I missed that one. And then there was like a few, like I guess mega rarities that I kind of expected to get just based on how many times they show up throughout the year, like redneck stint or red-throated pipit. Those are like common code threes that almost always show up in California or so on during the fall. And there was only one or two red-throated pipits this year, and they were just one-day wonders. And there was like no redneck stints, so that was a shocker too.
What was the most exciting bird sighting that you had throughout the year?
Um, I would say wood sandpiper in Yolo County, California. That was a bird I thought I would get the day it showed up. I was in LA, so it was near Sacramento area. So I quickly drove up to there before the sun went down, but I unfortunately got a flat on the interstate. So that
Wow.
prevented me from getting there the same day. I didn't show up until like 11 p.m., so it was dark. And I just slept in like the little trailhead parking lot there. And the next day I went to where it was seen previously, and there was like 20 birders out there looking, and it wasn't there. And there is a water treatment plant like a couple miles away that all of us birders went to go look and just scan, through thousands of shorebirds basically. And we looked for solid like 3 or 4 hours and still couldn't come up with it. And I went back to the previous spot it was seen again, and it still wasn't there. So I was like, well, I'm gonna try to expand my search. Like look within a 30-mile radius of like any water bodies, see if it's around there. And I was about 10 minutes away when someone texted me that the wood sandpiper was back at the original spot. And so I whipped my car around, sped over, and it was about like a mile walk to the spot. So I booked it, running as fast as I could. And they had it in the scope as soon as I walked up there. So that was nice. And a bonus is I only had about like 10 minutes with the bird before a peregrine falcon like dive bomb it. And it made it flush, and no one else got to see it since. Yeah.
At the right time.
Yep.
Did you skip any birds on purpose to like see a few other species?
Um, I mean, I didn't like skip them, like miss them throughout the year. There's definitely common stuff. I was like, well, I'm not gonna look for that now because I know I'll be back later in the year. Um, like there are some, wintering stuff in Arizona that I could have gotten, but I knew they'd be coming back in like the summer in like much larger numbers. So I just, waited it out, and skipped stuff like that. But, I eventually got it.
How many miles did you travel throughout your big year?
So I drove a little over 130,000
Wow.
in my Nissan Altima. Yeah. And then I believe I didn't track it, but I believe it's probably over 10,000 in rental car miles. Just because I, drove across excuse me, I drove across the US like twice, I think, in one. So
Cool. Did you have like a home base or were you just always moving to different spots?
so my excuse me. My family lived in Kentucky, so that was a home base whenever I was out east. And then I had a friend I was kind of roommating with in Arizona. That
Mhm.
was also considered a home base, you could say.
Cool. And then how did you manage like accommodation and meals throughout the year? Were you like mostly car camping or staying in hotels?
Mostly car camping for sure. When I would stay in a hotel or an Airbnb, it was most of the time when someone would offer to pay for it. But I never would, buy a hotel on my own. That's too
Mhm.
expensive. Um, or friends and family would offer that I could stay at their place for a night. Um, and for food wise, lots of McDonald's for sure. Chipotle, I loved eating Chipotle. And often I would just get snacks and stuff at the grocery store, like
Mhm.
getting a loaf of bread and PB&J and just doing that for like a couple days. So yeah, just stuff here and there. I mean, I never really ate out at restaurants and stuff like that. It's too time consuming and too
Yeah.
much money.
What were some unusual or like unexpected travel experiences that you had?
Um, hmm. Probably just last minute flights. I wasn't expecting to fly as much through the year. But when I'm birding in California and I hear a banana quit showed up in Florida,
Yeah.
and sometimes those birds don't stick longer than a week. So I was like, well,
Mhm.
let's look at flights. And most of the time, thankfully, things were pretty cheap and affordable. So I was able to get out there, get the bird, and then fly back the next day. So that was definitely something I didn't anticipate, but I needed to do it to, get more birds.
Mhm. How far advanced did you start planning for your big year?
It was kind of last minute. I mean, I didn't decide to do a big year until like September, October of the previous year.
Hmm.
I mean, I've been wanting to do a big year pretty much ever since I started birding.
Yeah.
So since I was 12, so I kind of already like had ideas and concepts of a plan of what a successful big year looks like. Um, but with like specific targets and stuff, I mean, mostly it was just last minute. I'd be traveling through Texas and be like, all right, looking at eBird, what easy targets can I
Mhm.
pick up? And I'll just like pull over 10 miles off the interstate and just bird for an hour and stuff.
Did you ever feel like a sense of competition with other birders throughout the year that were doing a big year?
Mm, not really. I mean, the McQuades who do a big year almost every
Hmm.
year.
Yeah.
Um, I was kind of competing just to be first in the U.S. for a while there, but I knew they would eventually outrun me because they went to Alaska and Hawaii and picked up like another 100 birds easily. So once I kind of had given that up, there wasn't really a competition for the lower
Yeah.
48.
And you were the only one. Were you the only one doing a lower 48 big year?
There was another couple doing a big year, but not as serious as I was. I think they ended with 706, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, broke 700.
Um, yeah.
What were some of the biggest challenges that you had throughout your big year?
Definitely driving overnight a lot. That's challenging to stay up, especially when you're alone. Most of the time when I drive during the day and I get tired, I'll just call friends and such, and that'll help me stay awake. But during the night, I'm not really much of a coffee drinker or energy drink, stuff like that. So I just like roll down the window and stick my head out or stuff like that to keep me up. Um, and also, it is stressful just spending money and watching finances. Keeping track of that was definitely rough at times, but I made it through.
Cool. Um, did you have like a favorite birding spot or region throughout the year?
Yeah, I always loved birding in the valley in Texas. That's like
Hmm.
my favorite place on the planet.
Yeah.
It's just really an experience when you open your car door and you start hearing green jays and
Yeah.
Altamira orioles. It's super fun.
How important was photography to you in getting pictures of every single bird that you saw?
It was of major importance for sure. I didn't have a camera for like a solid month or two of the year, so that was tough. But I always wanted to get pictures of a new bird I had seen, just because it's tough saying, "Hey, I got a new bird today," but I didn't get a photo.
Yeah.
I want people to trust me and see that my sightings were legit. So I always wanted to provide photos for stuff.
What gear did you use during your big year? Did you have like binoculars, spotting scope, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so Vortex actually lended me a spotting scope for my big year,
Cool.
as well as a new pair of binoculars. I think it was in May. My old pair of binoculars broke on me, so I needed to send them in to replace it, but I knew that would take like a week or two,
Mhm.
and I didn't have like a backup pair, so I asked them if I could just borrow a pair for like a week or two while they fixed it, and they were like, "Well, here, you could just have this pair."
Cool.
And yeah, it was really nice of them. So, I mean, I had a camera, a Nikon D500, with a 600 millimeter lens, which was
Cool.
definitely nice. So yeah, I mean, I had all the sufficient gear for sure.
Cool. How does it feel to hold the lower 48 big year record?
It's pretty cool. I mean, I still can't fathom it. It's registering in my brain, what I've done, but it's pretty cool just seeing all the people react on Facebook and Instagram of like what an accomplishment it is. It's super cool to be recognized and motivated from like the birding community so much to just get out there and get more birds.
Yeah.
Do you plan on doing a big year for like a specific state or something like that?
Nothing this year, but I am guiding in Arizona, hopefully for the next 2 years, and
Cool.
maybe I'll do a big year for the state of Arizona or something like that.
Any lessons or tips you would share with someone who's considering doing a big year?
Yeah, don't worry about all the common birds. That was a minor mistake on my part earlier on in the year. I kind of went out of my way multiple times for common birds, just because I didn't think I'd see them again. But if you're doing a very serious big year, you'll backtrack a lot, and most often you'll visit places that you thought you'd never come back, and you'll see like a bird 4 or 5 times you thought you'd just see once. So that's kind of embarrassing. Just like seeing a LeConte sparrow like 7 or 8 times, and you drove like 2 hours out of your way to get it your first time.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't worry about the common stuff. The rare birds will show up, and that'll bring you to the spots you need to be to like get all the easy pickups.
Cool. This is kind of similar, but if you could redo the year, is there anything you would do differently?
Yeah, basically just chase rarities in the beginning. There is like a field fair in Wisconsin for like a solid month or two that I should have chased. There was like a whooper swan in Washington, which I did up getting in the end of the year, thankfully. That was just pure luck, but it was wintering in Washington for like 3 months, and I should have gone to see it earlier, but I didn't. So yeah, just recognizing how rare birds are and chasing them.
What's next for you in your birding journey?
So yeah, I'll be guiding in Arizona officially now. My first client is a few days. Um, and I think I'll be doing that for a few more years. Hopefully, if I like it and things work out. Um, and obviously, I'll continue chasing lifers and such.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I want to have a life list of like over 800 for the lower 48 at some point. That's like the main goal.
Yeah.
So that'd be cool.
Do you plan on doing any international trips or anything like that?
I think I'm planning a trip to Costa Rica either the end of this year or sometime early next year. We'll see.
Well, I'm still trying to figure out how to get there.
Yeah, it's tough with the airfare, but I feel like once you get there, it's a lot cheaper than what everyone thinks.
Hmm. Well, where can people follow you?
On Instagram and Facebook mostly.
I'll link that in the video description below. And
Awesome, thank you.
one last thing. What's your best birding advice for someone?
Definitely reach out to birders when you meet them. It's kind of I don't know. It's really neat just to get to know the birding community, and it's cool to have so many friends everywhere. I mean, anywhere I go now, basically, or when I chase a rare bird, there's always someone I know, or if not, I can meet up with them later
Mhm.
because I've met them, in the past. So, just it's good to reach out and make a lot of good birding friends. It helps you for sure.
All right. Well, thanks for being on today. I'll put a
Yeah,
link
thanks,
to
man.
Ezekiel's Instagram in the video description below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video. Happy birding. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to find the most common birds that are in your area. I'll also go over the 30 most common backyard birds that you are most likely to see. And finally, if you stick around to the end, I've got a fun challenge that every beginner will love. More on that later. Hey, I'm Caleb from Better Birders, the channel that helps beginner birders build skills, ID more birds, and have more fun outside. Today, we're answering one of the most common beginner questions. That is, what birds am I most likely to see? Whether you're in the suburbs, the city, or somewhere rural, you've got birds around you right now, and so let's figure out what they are and which ones you're most likely to see next. I don't want to waste your time, so let's start with the easiest method. Download the Merlin Bird ID app and tap on the Explore Birds tab. You'll get a list of the most common birds that are in your area based on what people are actually reporting. It's sorted by seasons, that way you're not seeing birds that have already migrated away. There's going to be photos, calls, and descriptions of the birds that can help you identify what you're seeing. This is literally the tool that I use whenever I travel to a new spot or when I want to double check what's showing up in my yard. And best of all, it's free. You'll want to filter by likely birds so you can see what's around you based on your location and time of year. If you want to go a level deeper, open up the eBird app or website and click on Explore, then choose Explore Hotspots to see what's being reported at local parks, lakes, or trails. There's also a species map tab if you want to
research a specific species that you want to go try and find. That can be really helpful if you're trying to tick a bird off your list. There's also bar charts, which gives you a good idea of how common a bird is throughout the seasons. And the great thing about eBird is it's powered by local birders who submit their sightings every day. If this video is helping you so far, go ahead and tap that like button, as it helps this video spread to more beginner birders and lets me know to make more videos like this one. So next, let's go over the 30 most common birds in the US. And if you're a beginner bird watcher, stick around because this will help you recognize more of your local birds easier. These aren't guaranteed in every yard, but they're some of the most widely reported species across all of North America. The first one is the American robin. Pretty distinctive bird, orange belly, black head, and then gray back. Very common on lawns. It's a very common bird across North America, and if you've never read a range map before, the purple means that they are found there year-round, the blue means that they are found there only in the winter or non-breeding season, and then the orange means that they are found there in the summer or breeding season. If you happen to see some yellow on a range map, that means that birds are only found there in migration, which is typically spring or fall. Next bird is the northern cardinal. The males are bright red and very distinctive. The females are a little bit duller, but still have some red on them. Look for this big red bill to separate them from all other birds. Again, a pretty common bird, especially in the eastern and midwestern United States. And a fun fact about northern cardinals is females northern cardinals sing as well as the males, which is pretty rare for birds. Next one is the house finch. Again, a very common bird. Males are red, and then the females are gray. They've got a pretty distinctive bill that is kind of curved and a little blunt, which can be helpful for separating them from other finches. A very common backyard bird found across all of the country. Next one is the mourning dove. Again, a very common bird and often will come to your backyard bird feeders. If you've got some seeds on the ground, they'll probably go for those. Or if you build like a platform feeder and put seeds on that, they could enjoy that. Next is the black-capped and Carolina chickadee. And the reason I've lumped these two together is because they are very similar looking. As you can see, the black-capped is a little bit whiter, and then their range doesn't have a whole lot of overlap. This is the range of the black-capped chickadee. It's more of a northern bird. And then we've got the Carolina chickadee down here, which is more of like a southeastern bird. Very little overlap, as you can see here. There's just a little bit right along the edges of their range. They do occasionally hybridize over that little bit of overlap. If you don't live there, that's great because they're very hard to tell apart, especially when they're hybrids. Next is the blue jay. Distinctive bird. We got the blue crest, blue body, and again, it's a very large bird, so unlikely to be confused with any other birds. Pretty large range across most of the country. This light blue here means that they are found there in the winter, but not super common there. Again, a very loud bird, so you'll probably hear it before you see it. Next is the American goldfinch. We got a bright yellow bird with black wings. The females are a little bit dull, and then in the fall, the males molt to a little bit duller of plumage, but still pretty distinctive bird. They like coming to bird feeders and enjoy thistle seed over sunflower seeds, though they do occasionally eat sunflower seeds. For range, you can see they do migrate a little bit up north during the summer, but the majority of the population stays put throughout the whole year. And we've got a very common bird across all of the world, and that is the European starling. They were introduced in New York, I believe, a couple hundred years ago, and have since spread to the entire country, where they are very common and a bit of a nuisance species sometimes. As far as range goes, they're found throughout the entire country. Next, we've got the downy woodpecker. Pretty common backyard woodpecker, probably the most common. Found throughout most of the country. They'll come to suet feeders quite often and will occasionally eat sunflower seeds from your feeder. You can look for them on tree branches. The hairy woodpecker is a little bit larger than the downy woodpecker. Their range overlaps a lot, but the hairy woodpecker is larger and has a larger bill, so that's how you can tell them apart. Next, we've got the song sparrow, probably the most common sparrow in the United States. Will occasionally come to bird feeders, but not a very regular visitor. More often, you'll find them in wet areas such as creek beds or wetlands. A little bit of migration, as you can see here, especially in the winter. They'll head south for more food and warmer temperatures. Next, we've got the red-bellied woodpecker. You might notice its big red head right away, but they do have a little bit of a reddish wash on their belly. I think they should be renamed, but anyway, pretty distinctive bird. We got this barring on the back, which is pretty unique for woodpeckers. The ladder-backed woodpecker is the only other one that has that. For range, more of an eastern and midwestern bird. Next is the Carolina wren. Pretty common backyard wren. House wren in the summer could be a little bit more common than them. They're more of a southeastern bird, but they are expanding their range northwards, so keep an eye out for them. They might show up if you live in the north. Next is the white-breasted nuthatch. These birds will eat suet or sunflower seeds and are regular visitors at bird feeders. They have a pretty big range. There's several different subspecies throughout this range. The Ones in the east, I believe, have different calls than the ones in the west, but they look pretty much identical. Next is another very common bird that was introduced to the United States, and that is the house sparrow. Males look different than the females, but this is a very common bird and a bit of a nuisance species at times. They're found throughout the entire United States, but a regular at bird feeders. Next is the tufted titmouse, gray bird with a pretty big gray crest. Makes it pretty easy to identify. I've also got this rufous color on the flanks. Again, another Midwestern and Eastern backyard bird. Next is the common grackle. A little bit larger of a black bird. They got some iridescence on if the light is right. They migrate farther north during the summer, and then some of them will stay put throughout the entire year. Next one is a pretty unique bird, and that is the dark-eyed junco. The dark-eyed junco has a lot of subspecies that look completely different. So these birds right here are actually the exact same species as this bird right here. This, I believe, is the slate-colored subspecies. And then these two right here, I believe, are Oregon subspecies. So if we look at their range here, as a species, they're found throughout most of the United States, but the birds out here will look different than the birds out here in the east. In the east, it's all the slate-colored subspecies, and then out west, there's quite a few subspecies. You've got the Oregon subspecies, the pink-sided subspecies, the gray-backed subspecies. There's a lot of them, and then in the Black Hills of South Dakota, there's the white-winged subspecies, which looks just like the slate-colored subspecies. But for most of the country, you're going to see the slate-colored subspecies, and then for a lot of people, they are a winter bird. Next is my personal favorite bird, and that is the cedar waxwing. Pretty unique bird with this black mask and overall just like a tan body. These are pretty small birds, and they've also got, looks like their tail was dipped in wax, which is why they're named that. More of a northern bird that comes south in the winter. They feed on berries, so not going to be a feeder bird. If you got trees that have a lot of berries, these birds might pay a visit. Next is the northern mockingbird, found throughout the entire country. And the state bird of quite a few southern states. Pretty distinctive bird, often very loud and calling a lot. They like to mimic other birds. So if you think you hear like a blue jay calling, might want to pay attention because it could be a northern mockingbird. Next is the chipping sparrow. This sparrow migrates north for most of the country during the breeding season. And then in the south, they can be found there in the winter. And then in California and Arizona, they're found there year round. Pretty distinctive sparrow to separate them from other sparrows. Take a look at that big red cap and black stripe right through the eye. Next, we've got the gray catbird, and yes, in case you're wondering, they do kind of sound like a cat. They've got a few other calls that don't sound like a cat, but their main call does sound exactly like a cat. So if you think you hear a cat in the bushes, go and give it a look because it could be a gray catbird. Pretty distinctive bird with how gray they are, and then they've got this black cap. More of a migrator north for most of the country, and then in the southern United States, they're found there in the winter. Next is the Baltimore oriole. This is a migratory bird for most of the U.S. Pretty distinctive with orange belly and then this black cap. Out west, there's a few more orioles, but out east for most of the Baltimore's range, the only other oriole is the orchard oriole, and they're a lot darker of a red. Next is one of the most common birds in the world, and that is the barn swallow, a migratory bird for most of the U.S. They migrate farther south during the winter. Take a look at that big forked tail. That's the best way to separate them from other swallows. Speaking of swallows, we got the tree swallow, another common migratory bird. A lot of swallows migrate south during the winter because they feed on insects. And during the winter, for most of the United States, there's not a lot of insects out. So that's why they migrate south. Tree swallow is kind of unique because it's blue. But when you're seeing swallows, you're usually looking up. So you get to see the white underside. Unless you're out west, you don't really have a whole lot of trouble with confusion species. The violet green swallow can be kind of tough to separate when you're out west. Next one is the killdeer, and a very common bird. Migrates a little bit during the summer, but most of the time stays put. Pretty distinctive, famous for its broken wing display if you get too close to a nest, and it's probably the most common shorebird across the whole country. Next is the rock pigeon. Very common in cities across all of North America. You could find these out in less built-up areas, but they typically prefer cities as their go-to to live in. Next is the red-winged blackbird. We've got a male here on the left and then a female on the right. So as you can see, they're all different. The male has its namesake red patch on its shoulder of its wing, and then the females are darker, a little bit dull, but still have some streaking on the underside. As far as range, these are a very common bird. They are kind of unique because they will visit bird feeders, but then they also like to nest out in marshes. It's like, well, the song sparrow loves marshes. It's not going to be found at your bird feeder very often. So that can be the unique thing about red-winged blackbirds. They're also very loud birds. You'll probably hear them before you see them. Another member of the blackbird family is the brown-headed cowbird. Males have this namesake brown head, and then the females are just overall brown. To separate from other blackbird species, go and take a look at that very thick, short bill. As far as range goes, for the western U.S., they're mainly a migratory species during the summer, and then they stay put in the east and farther south. And then our last bird is the Canada goose, a very recognizable and common bird across city parks, really anywhere that there's water. They can also be found in fields too. And now for a fun challenge for beginner birders, and that is to keep a backyard list. This is one of the best ways to stay motivated and track your progress. Create a yard list, which is just a simple list of every bird that you've seen or heard from your yard. You can use a notebook, or you can log full checklists of birds in eBird. And eBird actually has a yard list feature, which is very helpful for keeping track. I highly recommend that you do that. You'll be amazed how fast it adds up, especially once migration kicks in. Question of the day is, what's the first bird that you ever identified? Let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your first bird story. And if you want help identifying the birds that you're hearing but not seeing, check out this video right here, because it's all about identifying birds by sound for beginners. I'll walk you through step by step. You seriously will not want to miss this, because once you can identify birds by their songs, it is a complete game changer. Check out the video right here. I'll see you there.
There are a lot of times when you're out birding and you come across a tough bird. Maybe it's because it's just a tough species, or maybe its plumage is a bit different than usual. If you want to up your bird ID game and be able to identify these birds, stick around, because in this video I'm going to walk you through 7 steps for identifying tough birds. Let's get into it. Identifying birds is one of the most exciting and sometimes frustrating parts of birding. When you're just starting out, you will run into birds that don't fit what the app or field guide says. The good news is there is a method to this. With the right approach, you can turn a mystery bird into a solid ID and learn a ton in the process. So the first step is to write it down immediately. Before you do anything else, get the details out of your brain and onto paper. You want to ask yourself, what size was it? Like, was it closer to sparrow sized, or maybe closer to robin sized? Any dominant colors that you notice, brown, gray, white, any distinct markings, these are especially helpful, like eye rings, wing bars, tail shape and size is going to be super helpful when you're trying to identify it later, so you want to make sure that you write that kind of stuff down. Also, something that can be a helpful clue is habitat, whether it was in a forest, marsh, backyard, bird feeder, and also, like, if you saw it in the forest, like, what part of the forest was it in? Black burning warblers like to hang up really high up in the trees, but the magnolia warbler, it is rarely ever found there. Step 2 is to get a photo or recording, even if it's a bad one. This is super important, because having a photo to refer back to is really, really helpful. And maybe you already have this and that's why you clicked on this video, and if so, you can go ahead and skip to step 3. But having a photo to refer back to is super helpful, because you'll be able to look at details that you might not have noticed before. Like, maybe you didn't know that you needed to pay attention to the wing bars, but then after you did some research, that's one of the best ways to separate it from similar species. So getting a photo, even if it's blurry or out of focus, is going to be really helpful, and a sound recording can be helpful too. If the bird's singing, go ahead and get some audio of it. There's apps that you can download and use to record audio. You can even just take a video of the bird and then the audio will show up that way, or use Merlin Bird ID and then it will actually save an audio file for you to refer back. To give you an example of where audio would be super helpful, let's look at the willow and alder flycatcher. These two birds are extremely similar and once used to be considered the same species, but they sound different. The alder flycatcher has a completely different song than the willow flycatcher, and I actually saw a willow flycatcher a couple years ago, and as soon as I knew I had a flycatcher, I wanted to record it, because really with all flycatchers, audio is one of the best ways to separate it. So I got some audio recording of it, and I'm really glad I did, because getting a picture of it would have been pretty useless because they look nearly identical, and even if you had the bird in your hand and you are a master bird bander, you might not even be able to tell the difference just because they are that similar looking. So getting audio can be very, very helpful and is sometimes overlooked. Step 3 is to check Merlin. Merlin Bird ID is pretty amazing, but it's not perfect, and so sometimes while the app will get it wrong, it can be a good place to start. You'll be able to see a bunch of pictures of the bird, and if it matches up, you might be able to figure out your problem just right there. Usually, if there's a similar looking species, Merlin will list that in the description, so make sure you read that, just to make sure you're not making too quick of an identification. You do want to do your research and make sure that you're not just going with the first bird that you see, or the first bird that looks kind of similar to the bird in your picture. Then there are some limitations to Merlin, like it doesn't usually have pictures of birds that are molting. Sometimes you might not even be looking at the right birds because the bird that you found is outside of its normal range. And if this video is helping you so far, go and tap that like button, as it lets me know to make more of these videos and helps other beginner birders just like you find this channel. Also, if you want more videos for beginner birders, go and tap subscribe, because that is what this channel is all about. Now, let's keep going. Step 4 is to compare in a field guide. You can grab a physical field guide like the Sibley's, which is what I use. When you're using a field guide, there's going to be a lot of different options, and some of them look pretty similar. So you want to just take your time, and if something looks wrong, you don't have to necessarily make that species go out of the question, because if you're stuck with an ID, there could be something wrong with the bird, and maybe its feathers didn't grow right, or it doesn't have the proper color. So you do want to keep that in mind when you're trying to identify that bird. Also, something that's really helpful is just to eliminate possibilities, especially in the field guide where there's a bunch of possibilities all right next to each other. You want to get some birds checked off and that you know that it's not this species. A good way to do that is to look at whether or not like the bird has an eye ring, wing bars, tail shape, just overall shape, certain colors. The main idea here is to eliminate some species and make it easier on yourself. Step 5 is to use eBird. So once you've gone through Merlin and a field guide, you should have a pretty good idea of what species it is. If not, you can move on to step 6. But if you get a decent idea on what you think it is, go ahead and go to eBird, go to the Explore tab, and then click on the Photos and Sounds. And here what we're going to do is we're going to put in a species, and then we're going to search for photos. We can see a bunch of photos of this bird. A lot of the photos of this bird are not in great quality, which is actually exactly what we're looking for. We're looking for birds that are not in perfect light, maybe have something wrong with them, and so that can make it a lot easier to find a match that way. And then also we can sort by juveniles. Some juveniles often look a lot different than the adults, and so that can be a really good way to identify your bird as well. Step 6 is to send it to me. If you're still stuck, this is where community helps the most, and so go to the link in the video description below and send me your photo, and I'll try and identify it. But don't just drop a photo and say, what is this? Because I do need some extra information, and so it can be really helpful to put in location and habitat, when you saw it, especially time of year, if it was doing anything, what it was doing, if it was doing anything at all. Sometimes birds just like to sit there, and also just any other clues, because what might seem like a small insignificant detail to you could actually be a really helpful clue for identifying this bird. So not only will listing all this information out give me a better chance at identifying it, it's also just really helpful for you to put all this information together and do your research. You might even be able to identify it after doing all of that research. Step 7 is to just be okay with saying that it's unidentified, because sometimes you just won't get it, and that's okay, because every birder has a list of mystery birds that we've just never been able to identify. And so if you do have some unidentified bird photos, go and send it to me in the link in the video description below. I'd love to see if I can identify them. And go and check out this video right here, because YouTube thinks it's the best video on my channel for you to watch right now. When I first started birding 5 years ago, I made plenty of mistakes, and I would constantly misidentify birds. And so for this video, I thought I'd go over some of the most common mistakes that I made, so hopefully you don't have to make them and can get better at birding quicker. The biggest mistake that I made is that I would jump to conclusions about a bird way too early. And so the biggest way to prevent this mistake from happening is just to slow down and just not jump to any conclusions, and just look at that bird and see what you actually see. It can be helpful for identifying birds, but it is just one field mark and should not be relied on exclusively. You should look at other things such as its bill shape, the just general shape of the bird, what habitat it's in, what it's doing, and when you combine all these together, then you can actually make an identification. The second one is just relying on one field mark, like color, instead of using multiple field marks. You should always ask yourself, what do I actually see, instead of what do I want to see? Because sure, a red-shouldered hawk would be a new lifer, but that does not change the fact that you were looking at a Cooper's hawk. And so the best way to avoid this is to just use multiple field marks and compare similar species, because there are certain species of birds that look very similar, and some of those are even rare birds. So just look at all the field marks, or another tool that I found is allaboutbirds.org. You can search for a particular bird on there, and then if you scroll down, it'll have some similar birds on there. And so that's a great way to separate from similar species, and I use that all the time. The next mistake is about ignoring size and shape, because these are often more reliable than a color of a bird is. And so to illustrate this, let's use the example of warblers. In the spring, warblers are really bright and vibrant because they have just molted. In the fall, those same warblers are a lot duller, and some look completely different because their feathers are old and have not been molted since early spring. And so because of this, color can vary pretty widely, and so that's why size and shape is often a much better field mark and doesn't change quite as much from bird to bird. And real quick, before I get to the next mistake, I wanted to tell you about a new resource that I just launched, and that is the Better Birders newsletter. Every week you get bonus birding tips, advice, new hotspots to visit, and more. And so sign up with the link in the video description below to level up your birding today. The next mistake is when you assume all birds look identical and ignore variations due to age, gender, and molt cycle. The best way to avoid this mistake is to look at structural differences first. While most bird species do look essentially the same within a species, there is occasionally some variation. The next mistake is when you overlook behavior clues such as how the bird moves or how it feeds, how it interacts with the environment. So the best way to avoid this mistake is to observe how the bird moves, whether it's hopping, walking, hovering, or clinging to a tree, and this can be a major clue. For example, the brown creeper will always creep up a tree, never down. And the American kestrel is a bird that often hovers, while other falcons and hawks do not hover. And if you're getting value out of this video, I would really appreciate it if you tap that like button, as that helps this video spread to more bird watchers just like you, and lets me know that you're getting value out of this. The next mistake is when you forget to consider habitat. Some birds just simply should not be where you're seeing them. For example, the Henslow sparrow is never going to be found in a forest because they always live in grasslands. And while there are some exceptions to this, habitat can be a good clue, just like behavior. You don't want to base your entire identification off of this, but it's just a good clue to get you going in the right direction. The next mistake is when you misidentify birds because bad lighting or shadows is distorting their color. Identifying by sound can help here, but ultimately just being patient and waiting for the bird to provide a better view is going to help you out a lot. And sometimes you just have to accept that you don't get a good enough view to make an identification, and that's just that. You're not going to be able to identify that bird, and that's okay sometimes. The next one is when you assume that a bird is a species you already know instead of considering a similar species. If you always assume that a bird is a common species, you're never going to find rarities. And I made this mistake many, many times when I first started, and I never saw any rare birds, and I think there's a direct correlation there. The next one is when you rely too much on quick glance IDs instead of observing the bird for longer. Part of birding is about enjoying birds, so make sure that you slow down and enjoy the birds that you find, and you're not just always rushing off to go find the next one. The next mistake is letting excitement take over and rushing to a conclusion instead of confirming details. This can happen a lot when you think you found a rare bird. Now, when you do think that you found a rare bird, the best thing to do is to get as much detail about the bird as possible. Take some pictures of it if you can, or try getting an audio recording. Take different notes about the different field marks, and maybe do a little bit of research on similar species, but overall just try to figure out what the bird that you're seeing looks like and take notes of those things. Now, if you want to find more birds when you're out birding, go ahead and click or tap on this video right here where I reveal 10 expert strategies every birder should know. You just saw a bird, it flew across the trail and landed for half a second, and then it disappeared. Brownish, medium-sized, maybe a little bit of flash white on the tail. And now you're left with the classic birder question. What bird was that? If that sounds familiar, you are not alone. Even experienced birders get stumped sometimes. But here's the truth. You can learn to identify birds quickly and confidently, even if they're only around for a few seconds. In today's video, I'm going to teach you 5 simple steps to identify any bird that you come across. These steps have helped me identify hundreds of species, and once you start using them, your birding skills will seriously level up. So let's dive in. Here's the problem. Most birders just try to match a bird to a picture from memory, or scroll through dozens of species hoping one looks right. That's exhausting. I'm getting tired just thinking about it. What does work is having a system you can constantly refer back to. A checklist your brain can run through while you're watching the bird, even if it's just for a few seconds. Once you know what clues or field marks to look for, your brain starts doing it automatically and you don't even have to think about it. You'll be surprised how quickly you can go from, what was that, to, oh yeah, that's a Carolina wren. So let's go through the 5 steps. Step 1, where are you? Location, habitat, and season. You want to start here always. What part of the country or world are you in? What habitat are you in? Are you in woods, wetlands, suburbs? Also, what time of year is it? For example, a bird that shows up in Minnesota in July might never be found in Florida in January, and this step will help you instantly eliminate hundreds of species that can't be what you saw. So here's a pro tip. Use the Merlin Bird ID app. It filters likely birds based on exactly where and when you are. Now here's a quick disclaimer. Birds do have wings, of course, and so they can sometimes be found outside of their expected range. Keep this in mind when you can't figure out what bird you're looking at, because it might just be a rarity. Step 2, size and shape. You want to ask yourself, is it sparrow-sized, more medium like a robin-sized, crow-sized, or maybe goose-sized? Is it long and skinny, round and stubby, is it slender with a long tail? I'll give you a quick tip. If it's condor sized, then it's probably a condor. Get it? Because condors are the largest bird in North America by a large margin. Anyway, beak shape can be another huge clue. If it's thin and pointed, that usually means it's an insect eater like a warbler. If it's thick and cone shaped, probably going to be a seed eater like a finch. If it's hooked, then definitely it's going to be then it's probably a raptor. When in doubt, compare a bird to something familiar. Like it was about the size of a robin, but chunkier with a short tail. That's the kind of description that can help you identify birds. Step 3, main color and pattern. This is the step that everyone wants to start with, but it's actually step 3, not 1. Here's why. Because colors can be misleading in the wrong light. That said, colors still do matter. You want to focus on the belly versus the back versus the head. Are they the same color? Are they contrasting? For example, the color on a hermit thrush. For example, if we're looking at a hermit thrush, you'll notice that the color on the back contrasts with the color on the tail, and that is one of the best ways to separate it from other similar looking thrushes. Also, any obvious markings like eye stripes, wing bars, tail patterns, eye rings, these can all help you. Don't get stuck on chasing exact colors, instead describe the overall color and placement of those colors. Step 4, behavior and movement. This is probably one of the most underrated clues in bird identification. Before we get to what I think is probably one of the most underrated parts of bird ID, quick heads up. If you're not already on the Better Bird newsletter yet, then you are missing out. I just reworked the format and it's way more useful now. Each week I send birding tips, fun facts, a hotspot of the week to fuel your next trip, and I share the best birds that I've found recently. It's quick, fun, and really pretty helpful. The link's in the video description below, so go sign up today. You won't regret it. Okay, so next we are talking about bird behavior and movement, and that's step 4. You want to watch how a bird moves. Is it hopping on the ground or climbing up a tree? Is it bobbing its tail like a phoebe? Is it staying low or foraging in the treetops? Is it alone or in a mixed flock? Many species have distinct behaviors. For example, woodpeckers climb tree trunks. Nuthatches go down tree trunks. Warblers will often flit quickly from branch to branch. Behavior is a fingerprint, and it's often more helpful than color. Step 5, sound. If a bird is making noise, then you better listen. Was it a song, a short chip, a weird rattle or squeak? Pull out your phone and record it, or use Merlin's Sound ID to identify it on the spot. If you're not able to identify it right away, hearing the sound gives you another major clue to narrow down things later. Before we put everything together, I've got a fun quiz for you to figure out what type of birder you are. Answer 9 easy questions and see what type you are. The link's in the video description below. I love this type of quiz, and I think you'll find it really fun too. So go ahead and pause the video and go check it out real quick. So let's go through a couple real-world examples using the 5-step method. So you're walking through a park early in spring and you see a small bird hopping around low in a bush. It's brownish overall with a long tail and it makes a fast chip-chip sound. For location and time, we're in the eastern US in April. Size and shape, it's small, slim, has a pretty long tail. For the overall color pattern, it's mostly brown with really no obvious markings. Behavior is maybe it's flicking its tail a little bit, and its sound is a repetitive chip call. The most likely identification here is an eastern towhee or maybe a song sparrow depending on the exact markings. For this next example, you're on a forest trail late in fall and you spot a small bird spiraling up a tree trunk. It's a streaky brown on the back and then has a white belly and a down curved bill. For location and time, we're in the northern forest in October. Size and shape is it's small, thin, and does have that slightly curved bill. Color, brown back, white belly, really no obvious markings. Behavior is climbing up the tree trunk. The most likely identification is a brown creeper. If you saw a bird like that, I can almost guarantee you that that bird is a brown creeper. Once you start using these steps, the identifications start falling naturally into place. So let's go over the 5 steps one more time. Location, whether that be habitat and time. Make sure you look at habitat and time of year, size and shape, color and pattern, behavior, and finally, sound. Use this checklist next time you see a bird, and you'll go from guessing to knowing faster than you think. Before you go and check out this video right here because YouTube thinks it is the best video on my entire channel for you to watch right now. I'll see you there.